Jack Johnson was born John Arthur Johnson in 1878 in Galveston, Texas. He was a professional boxer who was nicknamed the Galveston Giant. At the height of the Jim Crow era, he became the first Black American world heavyweight boxing champion. While in his adolescence, instead of attending school, he went to work to help support his family. He took a number of various odd jobs. Eventually, he vagabonded to Dallas to find work and apprenticed to a man who painted carriages. The shop owner, Walter Lewis, introduced Jack Johnson to boxing, and there was no turning back. He was good at beating his opponents, and unfortunately, he was good at beating women too. We'll get there. When Jack Johnson became the world heavyweight boxing champion in 1908, the day after Christmas, he accomplished a feat that a black man never had. But, to be fair and honest, 6 years before Jack Johnson won his title, another black man had already won a world boxing title. That man was Joe Gans. But his was in the lightweight class, and from his first title win in 1902 through 1908, he reigned continuously as the lightweight boxing champ of the world. I just had to add that distinction because I think that it's important to be very clear when talking about the first person to accomplish something. But back to Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight boxing champion of the world. He loved having that distinction from other black men, and he also loved having the distinction of being able to flaunt his white girlfriends and wives in front of anyone who would look at him, something that other black men just could not do. In this video, which is part 1 of 2 parts, we're going to take a chronological look at the women who were in Jack Johnson's life and in his bed, and how his relationship with one of them earned him another first black man distinction. At the time I'm recording this video, R. Kelly is the last or most recent man to be convicted under the Mann Act, crimes having to do with human trafficking and other offenses of a sexual nature. Well, Jack Johnson was the first black man and the first person altogether to be convicted under the Mann Act because of his relationship with a white teenage girl whose mother was having no parts of it. We'll discuss her in part 2, but by the end of this video, you will know some information on the woman who had a sexual relationship with Jack Johnson, then she got a lot of money from Jack Johnson, and then she became the prosecution's key witness against Jack Johnson as he stood trial for the Mann Act violations. Let's get into it. But first, if you like these videos about your favorite and most scandalous celebrities from yesteryear that make the Ty Said What Ty Said channel a time capsule for the culture, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know every time that I upload one of these videos or every time that I live stream, and comment "I subscribed" in the comment section so that I can say hello to you. Now, on to why you are here. Woman number 1, Mary Austin. Jack Johnson's first Mrs. Jack Johnson on record was Mary Austin. I don't have a photo of her, nor do I have some photos of some of Jack Johnson's other wives and girlfriends. As this video plays, you will see the photos of the women who had photos on file somewhere. Please just keep in mind that we are starting at 1898, and for most people in the United States at that time, taking photos was a luxury. In the early 1900s, it wasn't uncommon for most people to have had no professional photos taken of themselves or just one photograph taken their whole lifetime. Back to Mary Austin. According to Johnson's 1927 autobiography, My Life in Battles, he married Mary Austin, a black girl from Galveston, Texas, in 1898. No record exists of their marriage, and the 1900 census shows him still living at home with his parents and siblings. But Jack Johnson was prone to exaggeration, and he would call almost any woman who was sleeping with him Mrs. Johnson. Although they were most likely never legally married, Jack Johnson introduced Mary Austin as his wife wherever he went. She was the first, quote-unquote, Mrs. Jack Johnson, but she definitely was not the last. When Jack Johnson moved to California in 1901, Mary Austin went with him. But after he returned from a training visit to Colorado in 1902, she stayed behind. There was no legal record or talk of a divorce between this couple, which leads me to further believe that even when Jack Johnson didn't legally marry a woman, if she was his favorite woman at that time, he would just call her Mrs. Johnson and announce her as Mrs. Johnson in public. Woman number 2, Clara Kerr. While he was living in Philadelphia during the summer of 1903, Jack Johnson met a black woman, Clara Kerr, at a North Philadelphia brothel. Yes, she was a prostitute. Just a few months later, in September of the same year, she traveled with him to Bakersfield, California, and was his companion for the greater part of the next 3 years. Then, in 1906, she ran off with an old friend of Jack Johnson's, a racehorse trainer named William Bryant. She took most of Jack Johnson's jewelry and even his clothing. Jack Johnson tracked down Clara and his friend William. They were living in Tucson, Arizona. Jack Johnson had Clara Kerr arrested on burglary charges, and rightfully so. But Jack Johnson forgave her and became romantically involved with her again. Wow, she must have had some really good cornbread. Anyway, the couple moved to California, but Jack Johnson started having trouble finding money-making fights, and when his money ran out, Clara Kerr left him again, this time for good. Woman number 3, Alma Lola Toy. During a 3-month tour of Australia in early 1907, Jack Johnson had a brief romance with Alma Lola Toy, a 20-year-old white woman from Sydney. Their relationship caused a scandal in the sporting world, so much so that Alma Toy won a 500-pound libel judgment from the Sunday Times newspaper company for an article printed about her relationship with Jack Johnson, published in its sporting paper called The Referee. This was a brief romance, even for Jack Johnson, who was known to bounce from woman to woman. But even though it was short, it was apparently life-changing for him, because after this relationship, he had an epiphany. Being with Alma Lola Toy led Jack Johnson to the striking realization that he needed to renounce black women altogether. White women only. Yes, after returning from Australia, Jack Johnson began traveling with white women exclusively. This is what he said about his decision in his own words in his autobiography. Quote, "The heartaches which Mary Austin and Clara Kerr caused me led me to forswear colored women and to determine that my lot henceforth would be cast only with white women." End quote. Now, in actuality, he forswore no one. He continued to pursue both black women and white women for the rest of his life, but from that point on, he would only give white women the title of Mrs. Jack Johnson, whether that title came along with a legal marriage or not. He would still sleep with black women, but he made it very clear that white women were his preference. Woman number 4, Hattie McClay. Jack Johnson met the next Mrs. Jack Johnson on August 8, 1907. Hattie McClay, whose real name was Anna Peterson, was also a prostitute, working in a whorehouse in Manhattan. She quickly became Jack Johnson's most frequent traveling companion, but their travels together were not happy-go-lucky all of the time. Soon, Hattie McClay learned that the world was not ready for a white Mrs. Jack Johnson. Upon returning to North America after the Tommy Burns fight in Sydney, Australia, the finest hotel in Victoria, British Columbia, refused a room to Jack and Hattie. And Jack Johnson's hometown of Galveston, Texas, canceled a homecoming parade that was planned for Jack after it was made known that he was traveling back home with a white woman. Hattie McClay ended up losing her Mrs. Jack Johnson title to his next two women. I say the next two women because she continued to be his second choice to his next girlfriend and his first official wife. Yes, she hung on for a while and got as much as she could for as long as she could. When Jack Johnson and Hattie McClay finally parted company in February 1911, he paid her $500 for the return of all of his letters and telegrams. And that $500 in 1911 had the same buying power as $14,000 does today in 2021. Woman number 5, Belle Schreiber. In March 1909, Jack Johnson visited the Everly Club, an exclusive all-white whorehouse in Chicago's Levee District. You might be thinking, how did Jack Johnson get into an exclusive all-white anything? Anyone can see that he's not white. Well, he had to be escorted onto the property by his manager, George Little, who was a white man. Without George Little, Jack Johnson would have had access to nothing, not even his prize-winning fights. Jack Johnson was a rich black man with no power. White managers and promoters had to allow him to earn every dime he had. They couldn't claim to own Jack Johnson's talent that helped him win fights, but they held the keys to everything that he was able to access. Even his manager, George Little, had to give Jack Johnson access to his degeneracy in this instance. And he did. Jack Johnson, who had desired entry into this brothel for months, didn't have the permission to do more than just look around. But he did convince 5 of the prostitutes to go for a ride with him in his car. One of those prostitutes was named Belle Schreiber. She was the 23-year-old daughter of a Milwaukee policeman. She came to Chicago to do secretarial work. But once she saw what the city had to offer, being a good time girl seemed like a much better fit for her. The madams at the Everly Club fired Belle Schreiber after she slept with Jack Johnson. At least 4 other prostitutes were fired for doing the same thing. But in Belle Schreiber's mind, getting fired from the whorehouse might have been just what she needed because she was soon Jack Johnson's new favorite whore. She was living the life of a good time girl, traveling with all expenses paid, plus, as she said, a little over to have in my pocketbook. But after Jack's next favorite entered into the picture in the fall of 1909, Belle Schreiber was soon relegated to second-tier status. What a short run she had as his favorite. Not even a full year. Belle left Jack twice after he became physically violent with her on 2 separate occasions. After Jack Johnson left her, she had trouble finding other work, even as a prostitute. Madams fired her or even refused to hire her in the first place because she had degraded and tarnished herself by sleeping with a black man. Even though Jack Johnson was rich and famous, Belle's association with him as her lover only lowered her social status. Even as a lowly prostitute, having been with Jack Johnson made her even lower. Perhaps in an effort to pay her back for ruining her career, if you want to call it that, in October of 1910, Jack Johnson helped her open her own whorehouse. He wired money to Belle for train fare from Pittsburgh to Chicago, then paid the first month's rent on the building, and then bought all of the furniture for her very own brothel. But 2 years later, federal investigators tracked down Belle Schreiber to a whorehouse in Washington, D.C., and she became the prosecution's chief witness in Jack Johnson's Mann Act trial. My. This is where we'll end part 1. Come back to the Ty Said What Ty Said Vintage Celebrity Scandals channel to see part 2. In the meantime, did you know that Jack Johnson was the first owner of what became the Cotton Club? In 1920, on the corner of 142nd Street and Lenox Avenue, he opened Club Deluxe and later sold it to Oni Madden, who changed the name to the Cotton Club. I have a video that you can check out on some things that happened there during the tenures of Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway. You can see that video here. I will also leave a link in the description box. My sources for this video are My Life and Battles by Jack Johnson, PBS, Jack Johnson and the Era of Great White Hopes by Graham Kent, and The Victorian Historian. If you want text notifications so that you can get a text 15 minutes before I release a video or 15 minutes before I live stream, simply send a text to 786-632-2135 to let me know that you want text, and you will get an outgoing text message 15 minutes before I have a new video. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ty Said What Ty Said channel. Please leave a thumbs up and comment so that we can get a discussion going. And share this video on all of your social media, especially your Facebook. That really helps me out a lot. And subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know when my next video is ready for you. And if you don't like what I'm saying but you love it, feel free to hit that applaud button just below your video screen there and send me some
donations.
Yeah, baby. See you on the next video.